Civilization VII's signature features do a lot to change up the formula. Civ switching, leaders, ages. Now, I reviewed the game the other week, and I am on board with all of these new, massive changes. However, there was one issue I ran into when I started, and it's quite a simple one. With leaders and civs detached, and said nations changing through the ages, who do I play as? It's a small thing, but when I started, I spent far too long on this screen trying to work out a combination that I found compelling, and this led to several false starts and a rough beginning. So, I figured I'd share what I learned. I'm not going to tell you who to play or how. I don't want to rob you of any of that joy of discovery. Just hopefully give you a few jumping off points as to what civs and leaders to experiment with as you learn the ropes. And hopefully help you avoid the false starts that took up my first few hours. And after flicking back and forth, I decided to stop overthinking. I leant back into a time-old civilization tradition. Pick Egypt and build wonders. To keep things simple, I went with Hatshepsut as my leader.
Hatshepsut.
Her bonuses are straightforward: culture from trading, faster building next to navigable rivers. Not much to get tripped up by. I was getting my head around the systems, the city management, the ages, etc., and most of antiquity was spent churning out wonders and slowly coming to terms with the game. Hatshepsut as the aforementioned river bonus, which I thought would pair nicely into Songhai, and that's probably a smart choice. Unfortunately, in my infinite wisdom, I had not actually built on the huge navigable river in my vicinity, meaning most of those bonuses were going to waste, and the mistakes kept coming. Songhai's unique unit, the gold-bangled infantry, gets a +5 combat bonus when on a resource tile. Now this is pretty big, and definitely should be taken into consideration when attacking cities. You want to be snatching up resource-rich lands, and these units get a bonus when standing on said resource. It's a win-win, as long as you actually remember to put your units there. Coming into the modern age, I took a bit of a pivot and went with Siam. They have bonuses to culture, get a big incentive to befriend independent powers, and their unique river improvement provides decent happiness. And to top it all off, elephant cannons. These are excellent for obvious reasons. In retrospect, given I was pursuing a culture win, Siam wasn't a terrible choice, but I was completely wasting their diplomatic potential. Buganda would have been an unconventional option, given I was constantly scrapping with neighbors. Pillaging their lands for culture would be a fun way to go. Mexico is also a bit of a cultural powerhouse that would have been a sensible pick, though the clear disadvantage is that they have no elephant cannons. All in all, the Egypt, Songhai, Siam route sort of worked. I definitely play it differently now I know how the game works, and by that I mostly mean I would actually use rivers. But the first game is a freebie. After this, I upped the difficulty a step and gave Napoleon a whirl.
Faire tout ce qu'on voudrait faire, c'est être un dieu.
One huge bonus of his, +1 movement on all land units. If you played Grand Colombia in Civ 6, you will know how strong that is. But that wasn't the thing that drew me to Napoleon. Culture gained for units killed, and a percentage, not a flat amount. A nice little push on its own, but there's a few other civics squirreled away that synergize with this. One of which is from Rome. You gain culture when you train a unit. Then, you send it off and it kills someone. You get more culture. My aim was to have a war machine constantly sending units into the fray, churning out culture by hacking up my enemies. And that's exactly what happened. Rome felt great in this pairing. The extra movement had an impact straight out of the gate and helped me overwhelm Augustus and knock him out of the match. Having uncontested land allowed for some risk-free expansion, and despite the second war not really converting to any gains, it didn't matter. You're still making units and killing them and generating culture. Going into exploration, Spain seemed like a sensible choice, though I was a bit lost on their potential initially, given their unique improvements can only be built in their homeland. And the military legacy path, as well as Spain's whole general thing at the time, was about conquering distant lands. It took a few civics, but the power of Spain made sense not too long into the age. Raw combat strength in distant lands, bonuses to navy to assert control of the seas, settlements you conquer along the way get bonuses, and you can hire conquistadors which provide a great person effect. Provide a general with 3 free units, little bonuses like that. So you're getting stuck into the newly unveiled continent, and you get a flat combat bonus just for being there. You're incentivized to conquer distant land settlements, not just because you're Spain, but to progress the the military legacy path for the age. Not to mention, by following this route, chances are you will also complete the economic one at the same time. You sweep across distant lands, snatching settlements, returning treasure fleets. All the while, you're still gaining culture for every enemy killed, and if you slot the old Roman civic, you'll keep getting additional culture for each unit trained. So, you can afford to neglect a bit of cultural development in favor of military production. Keep that war machine turning all the way up to the modern era when France steps in. So, Napoleon, France, you've got the historical angle, but the kit makes this a great pairing. First up, Garde Impériale is just a really solid unique unit. It has a ranged and melee attack, bonus near a commander, and definitely the best flag in the whole game. And then there's yet more passive culture, when you construct buildings and another bonus for killing units. You're getting even more worth out of Napoleon's passive bonus, and you can steamroll down the civics track without even thinking about it. You can certainly pivot into a culture victory here, but following the exploration age juggernaut that is Spain, this can set you up into a really strong position to push out a decisive military win. All in all, there's leader pairing, civ combo, Rome, Spain, France. It worked really well. I was considering replacing France with Prussia, which arguably would have been stronger military-wise, but that little culture engine combined with everything else just made this tick. After a very decisive military victory, I wanted to check out the diplomatic side of the game, going with Machiavelli.
Ciascuno vede ciò che sembriamo essere.
He's a wily statesman, but also a bit of a bastard. I started with Greece for the influence generation bonus, as well as the civics tied into enacting endeavors and sanctions. I'm still not 100% sure on the optimal approach with Machiavelli. He gains gold if an endeavor is rejected, and I suppose you can be firing these off to unfriendly neighbors, guaranteeing their rejection and netting some gold. I did not play it this way, instead taking the lower gold reward for having the endeavor accepted, as I figured influence is a more precious currency than gold, and harder to generate. Greece has some solid culture generation, which is useful to beeline towards their unique civics, which complement Machiavelli well. By this game, I had pushed the difficulty up another step, and the hoplites did a great job of holding back some very aggressive city-states. Turns out, they can send commanders your way, and even capture cities. Don't skimp on those early units. I was trying to play the field with endeavors and keep the peace somewhat, but that did not work, and I made mortal enemies of both Frederick and Xerxes. Going into exploration, I was at a loss of who to evolve into, eventually settling on Normans for the defensive bonuses, as I had a feeling my neighbors would go into the Second Age with a chip on their shoulder, and that they did. The focus on walls, defensive bonuses, and a very slippery cavalry unit really helped fend off the neighborhood bullies. The Chevalier proved great for reducing pressure and hitting my opponents off guard, and the coastal combat bonus was something I overlooked initially, but proved a godsend during one particular assault. Getting boxed in by these defensive wars meant I struggled to get settlers out and explore the new world. Plans for economic dominance slipped away along with my dreams of being a conniving Machiavellian capitalist. Going into the Third Age, I went with Russia, in the hopes of regrouping and pushing for a science victory, but the damage of a poor exploration age had been done. My arch-rivals knew I was behind and pounced, ending my game early. And there's a couple of lessons there. First, if you slip behind and don't accomplish much in one age, the slate does get wiped clean and you're still in the running. But without those legacy bonuses, you will be at a disadvantage. You can come back from it, but you'll be vulnerable. And that feeds into lesson number 2. In the modern age, the AI has a tendency to see red. Hold off on your grand plan initially and focus on your military. If they see you slacking, they can and will move in. And one war declaration has a way of spiraling, dragging many more into the fray. But anyway, Machiavelli is an interesting leader to play as, and one that will definitely be added to my regular roster. You've got an interest in generating influence, and there's a bit of a balance to be maintained between spending that on endeavors and throwing a bit at independent states. The bonuses can be quite strong, but I think I got the balance wrong here. He is not best suited to focus on city-states as his primary, and for that kind of gameplay, you're going to have a better time with Tekumesh, who has some great independent bonuses. I did one game with him before realizing the city-state system is a little undercooked, so not much to report there. Finally, and definitely the game I had the most fun with, Pachacuti doing mountain things.
Pachacuti.
Trouble with this is it depends massively on the map. The leader has a mountain bias, but I had a few false starts where mountains were few and far between. When you've got a few mountains near you though, it leads to some pretty hefty bonuses. I started as the Mayans, and they get an initial small bonus for vegetation. I didn't overthink this, just a little nudge to get you to your first few techs slightly faster. Their unique buildings are much more impactful, along with a civic that gives you a production boost when you research tech. Mayans get a decent yield bonus when working vegetated areas, cities, so I found it good to avoid those tiles when placing districts. And their unique scouts should be used to look for the most important thing, mountains. Send scouts out, find mountains, send settlers and claim said mountains. Mayans won't get much benefit from them, but the Inca, ooh, do they love mountains. Everything came together in the exploration age. Inca gets some really hefty increases to food production, meaning more specialists, and those specialists can be placed in tiles with hefty mountain adjacencies, resulting in a few powerhouse cities, and an easy way through the science legacy path. Any happiness issues are offset by some really strong generation from civics, as well as the ability to work mountain tiles, and the yields from them are nothing to be sniffed at once they get stacked a bit through the civics tree. It worked out really well. It's an interesting playstyle and it just felt strong. As I said, Science Legacy track was blasted through, but I made solid progress through the other trees without even paying them much focus. Maya into Inca definitely was my favourite Age 1 and Age 2 path so far, and I'm sure you are waiting for the grand climax, but sadly, it fell apart. Mexico seemed like the sensible choice in the third age. I had a lot of happiness, and I had a lot of culture. My science was already strong, so the plan was to make me a triple threat. Unfortunately, and drawing back to the last game, in the modern age, if the AI sees a weakness, they will strike. I did not learn my lesson and neglected military production coming into the third age. Instead, I was trying to set up my culture engine, and I paid the price. One war declaration turned into 2, turned into 3, turned into the whole bloody world trying to get a piece of my Mexican pie, evidently. Being very strong in the previous age had made the AI dislike me somewhat, and it all came toppling down like a stack of dominoes. But you know what? I'm not even mad about it. I'm really enjoying Civ 7. And yes, the AI can get a bit restless and throw everything at you. And that can get frustrating when all your hard work comes crashing down. But before that, when it's you against the world, when you're fighting on multiple fronts, having your soldaderas hold the line against overwhelming odds, it does feel pretty great. Every game is a learning experience, and though I made a lot of mistakes, lessons were taken on board each time. Some of the Civ picks felt awkward together, some felt like they were meant to be. If you've any comments as to which pick seemed a bit odd, and what you'd have gone with instead, let me know. I'm having a lot of fun with the game, and I am keen to experiment further. And while you're getting your thoughts down in the comments, let me know also, which Civs are missing for you? What's on your wish list for the future, and what dream nations do you think would be right at home in this new system? Personally, I'm hoping for a few more Central and South American powers, and I'd love to see some Antiquity-age Germanic tribes. Just look at Augustus. How could you not want to mow him down with a horde of Visigoths? And on that thought, I'll wrap this up. These have been my musings, findings, and lessons learned from my first few games of Civilization VII. I will catch you another time for some more strategy content, and until then, I'm going to go keep getting my ass handed to me by Frederic.